Hello, today we will be taking a look at what is inheritance and how we can use this mechanism to our advantage. So, inheritance is a mechanism to reuse functionalities of existing classes. These classes are called parent classes in our new classes, our child classes. So let's see that with the example of the parent class called animal and two children classes called cat and dog. So first of all, let's create our class animal. Okay. So now let's create a variable called animal counts and set this to 0. Now let's define our constructor. Now add the name, age, and we can give this a default value of 0 if we want. Size is default 1 and color none for now. Okay, so these are the default values, the one that have an equal sign next to them. So now let's just assign the values to the ones that are supposed to be set. So self name equals name, self size equals size, self color equals color, and then self age equals to age. And let's also increment the animal count by 1. Oh, let me just remove this as here. Oh, excuse me, you have to do animal dot animal count. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now we can create the methods of this class. So define it, and this is just going to print the name and also is eating. Okay, now let's define run, print our name and is running. Okay, now let's add the getters and setters for this class. So let's define set name. Okay, so self.name equals name, this is pretty standard, and also get name, that we just return the self.name. Okay, now let's do one for the size, set size, and this just sets the size to the one that we provided, and let's get the size as well. Return self.size. Okay, and finally the color, set color, and you can set the self.color to be equal to color, and then get color just returns the self.color. Okay, perfect. Okay, now let's go ahead and create, let's actually add one more function called print animals, and this just print, and we actually don't even need the self here. We're gonna print, or actually we do need it in the newest version. Okay, so print total animals created so far, and we can add the animal dot animal count. Okay, so we are done with our class. So now let's actually call the print animals. So this is going to print the amount of animals that we have already created. And now let's go ahead and create animal 1, which is animal, and we want to set the name to animal 1. Let's go ahead and print the amount of animals after that, and let's repeat this process for another animal called animal 2, and we just set the name to animal 2. Now let's see what happens. Okay, so actually we don't need the self here, we can just leave it blank. Okay, so you can see that at first we have 0 animals, then we create our first animal and we print 1 in total, then we create our second animal and we have 2 in total. Okay, so now let's delete all of this code and we can just hide the class animal for now. Let's create a new class called cat, and this cat will inherit from the class animal. Now we can create cat's count. Okay, now let's go ahead and create the constructor. So define, and inside here we want to add name and also age, which we will set to 1, size, which we will set to 1 by default, and color, let's set this to cat color. Of course we will be changing that later on. Now first of all we can just do cat.catCount plus equals 1 to increment the cat's count, and now what we can do is super cat self dot init name, age, size and color. And keep in mind that the super keyword is used to call the constructor of the parent class. So in here we're calling the constructor of the animal class. Okay, now let's define the meow method that just prints the name of our cat and also is meowing. And let's also define the print cats method without the self that just prints total cats created so far, and then just the number, which is cat.cats count. Okay, perfect. So now this is our child class cat. Now let's call the animals print animals, and then let's create a cat. So cat1 is equal to cat1. Now let's do cat dot print cats. Okay, and also print our cat1 dot name. And keep in mind, in a real life scenario you would just add setter and getter methods as well. And as you can see, the output is first of all we print that the animals are 0, then we create a new cat, and then the total amount of cats created is 1, and then the name of the first cat is cat1. So what we can do, we can utilize the setName function from the parent class. So we can go ahead and say cat1 dot setName, and then set the name of this cat to be cat2. So now, as you can see, we get cat2 here because we changed the name through this method. Now the theoretical questions for today are what is inheritance, why do we need it, does Python support it, what is the super keyword in Python, and finally, can we access the constructor method of the parent class from within the child class. So you have to be able to answer these questions take a look and see if you have any more questions, anything that you should just review, and if you're fine, then continue. Okay, so this is the coding exercise for today. So create the class dog that inherits the properties of the animal class. Create a bark method and maintain count of dogs, just like we did with the cat, and then verify in code that the number of cats plus the number of dogs equals to the total number of animals. You can use the class cat that we created before. Okay, thank you very much. Always try to practice, try to get better, and I will see you on the next lesson.